r/AskReddit by Redmond ETS. What is the saddest memory from your childhood? I knew a high school student when I was a kid borrowing my crayons because he couldn't afford to buy coloring materials for his project. After a week he gave them back, but most of them were missing or was switched to different brands. He was also quite embarrassed when he gave them back to my mother. After showing my mother the crayons, we went to his house, and after seeing us he immediately went inside terrified, thinking that my mother was gonna scold him for losing the crayons he borrowed. But instead she reassured him that it was okay and it didn't matter. He later cried from embarrassment and happiness that she didn't say anything mean to him. It always made me sad how unfortunate some people are. Having a guy pull a knife on me on a bus when I was 11. I screamed. Guy ran, got to school with the help of my sister. Police called, mum came to get me. She never asked me about it, put her arms around me or gave me any support. I was freaking 11. My stepdad had been raping me and molesting me since age 2 or 3. I'm not sure if my mom knew, but at age 10 she walked into the room on it. She immediately walked out and later beat me for stealing her man. As a kid I still loved my mom and I was devastated. I escaped 3 years later, but that was brutal to me. I was 10. Woke up to my stepmom yelling. My dad died in a car accident. My mother coming home without the twins she just birthed. First family loss, first stillbirth experience, and first time seeing my mum suicidal. I am so glad I can hardly remember my childhood. I watched my parents change after my sister died. The death was a brutal memory, but watching your parents change and become worse people from it was tougher. One of the nicest kids in my 50s neighborhood contracted polio and died. Post-apartheid South Africa, my school was a bit late in accepting black kids into the school, like a good 5 years. I was in grade 7, and we went on a school trip. The first black person in our school drowned. We were all playing in a rock pool by a river, and then next thing, everybody started asking where she was. Kids and teachers ran around looking for her while me and some guys started diving and looking for her. We found her. Me and 2 other kids pulled her body out of the water. Sorry if this is a sensitive subject, but when was this? I remember reading about something like this several years ago. It happened in Middleburg, 1999. Oh, this question brings back some bittersweet memories. The saddest memory from my childhood has to be the time when my family had to move away from our old neighborhood. We lived there for years, and I had made some amazing friends. I remember the day we packed up our things, and I had to say goodbye to my best friend Sarah. We promised to stay in touch, but we were just kids, and life got in the way. I'll never forget the tears in her eyes as we hugged one last time. That feeling of leaving behind something so familiar and special still tugs at my heartstrings. It taught me the importance of cherishing the moments and people we have in our lives, because you never know when circumstances will change. Had 3 neighbor friends as a kid. Well, 2 friends and a neighbor kid I didn't really get on with. Neighbor kid starts setting animal traps in my backwoods. I'm 8 and don't like animal cruelty, so I start sabotaging them. One day, one of my friends comes to the door and says he wants to go sabotage traps with me. Says they're in neighbor kid's yard. We sneak through my woods into his, and then as we're approaching the traps near the wood line, friend puts me in a half Nelson or some shit, and then neighbor kid and other friend come out from behind the pool shed, both wielding put golf clubs. They proceed to beat the shit out of me. 8 years old. Summertime. That was when I learned what betrayal meant. Racial abuse from an old Irish guy. Called me Muslim and told me to go back to my own country. I am adopted by 2 very white Irish parents, and they basically called the police on him. Up to that point, 7 or 8, I had never had a moment of that. Since then my parents taught me that scroats like that will be in your life your entire time. They taught me just ring the guards and let them handle it. And it's worked many times. I don't snitch usually, but racists aren't people worth protecting. My mom kicking and beating me because I refused to sing for her. She tried to pimp me out to TV stations and modeling agencies, and thought to use my skill in singing to get me into stardom. I know it was because we were poor, and my mom was desperate to get away from my financially abusive father. They weren't married. But I've developed a fear of doing my best in front of her because I'm afraid she'll exploit it again. When I was 8, I saw a 4-year-old girl get backed over in a parking lot and crushed to death under one of those trucks with ridiculously high wheels. They never saw her and just backed up. I still remember the blood-curdling scream as her mom witnesses the whole thing, and my dad yelled at me to go to the car as he went over to help. I am 43 and I remember that day as clear as yesterday. My dad burning my arm as punishment with a red-hot bit of bar stock. That's truly horrific for you. He died alone in a pool of his own piss. I'm happy and healthy with a living wife and child. I win. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.